It's that time of year we're going to rank some board games. One of our favourite ever board games from 50 to 41.
Hi, I'm Libby and this is Julian. We are BoxedMeeples and today we're starting our top 50 ranking of our favourite board games of all time. This has been pretty tricky. Last year we only did the top 20.
Yeah, so it's doubled in length.
But I felt like we've played so many more games, especially this year. I think we've obviously played the games we had more, and we've played about 170 new games. So just honing it down to 20 felt like we were leaving off too many favourites, and that was too difficult. So to 50 it is.
I think as the more we play board games, the more, it's obviously our main hobby. It's what we do most of our spare time. But in the last few years, we've joined more board game clubs. We're playing more games on sort of BGA as that the collection of games on there expands. So we, our buffet of games is getting broader.
It is.
It really wasn't a challenge to add on 30 extra games. To be honest.
No. It was difficult to work out where to put them.
Yeah.
And obviously these are our opinions. You're welcome to your own, and we hope that you tell us yours. But this is just ours, and I think I need to say that this was mine at the point that I wrote the list, because every time I look at the list, I want to change things around.
You've given more thought to yours. I initially did this thing called Meeple, which is an interesting website. If you've never used it, do. It links into your BGG account, and you can then compare games, and from that it derives a list. And do you do the same?
I did, but then I did have to do some extensive tweaking. I think maybe I rushed that a little bit, and of course that basis, when I'm choosing a game in that way, I'm literally like, right, which one of these two do I want to get to the table more right now?
Yes.
And the problem with that occurs when the games are very different styles. And then that affects what my mood is for playing that style of game, rather than how much I like the game over the other game.
Well, a good one recently, we did a video, our game of the month, and in that we said which of these do you prefer, comparing Flamecraft to Rebellion.
They're so different.
They're both great games, but you wouldn't ever choose one over the other if the situation wasn't right. So if you're playing in a group, Rebellion's not ideal, but Flamecraft would be.
Yeah.
So it does have its flaws, but I think building a groundwork is quite good. Yeah. So, shall we get into it? Shall we just start listing our favourite games of all time? Let's start off with game 50.
So I'm starting my number 50 with Boss Monster. And it's the game that has some sentimental value to me, because it's one that we played a lot when we were first started dating. And it turns out, hadn't done that many board games, just like a lot of party games and social nights. And I was under the impression that you were a board gamer initially. So something like Boss Monster was perfect for us, because it suits you and what you were familiar with in terms of like that sort of computer game styling from your history, but felt like I had some sort of strategic play within there in the cards and things. And obviously being a two-player, we've only ever played it at two.
Yeah,
I don't know
it
if
does go to more, but the fact that the neoprene mat we have is designed for two does suggest it's a dual game.
Yeah, and just we've had a lot of fun with that game. And we've got loads of different expansion bits for it. So then there's different weapons and different things going to different dungeons to sort of negate. And it has that nostalgic value for me that keeps it on the list. We do need to get it out more often. Again, I think it is one of those that, did we play it last year? If we did, only once or twice. So not very often. So we do need to do that, and you do have the whole little lunchbox box for it. So
we've got a lot of cards for it. I think we've got 3 expansions, and I did some extra printed cards for us. Telling me it's not on my list, and it's interesting because if you saw it, you go, "That's a Julian game."
Oh, it is totally a you game.
Because Brotherwise Games have made a follow-up, a spiritual successor that I enjoy much more, and I play that a lot more. That being said, I do love Boss Monster. If we went a bit further, it wouldn't be in my. It'd be in my top 60.
Yeah,
It's
right.
it'll be an honourable
Just
mention.
off the
Yes,
list.
it's
Right.
and I
okay.
think that is because we haven't played it for a while,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
not kind of current in my memory.
And I think, as I said, for me, it's leapt just into the top 50 because of the sentimental element rather than entirely for the gameplay element. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, my top 50, entry point, my 50, is Starcadia Quest, and I think this is really holding on for dear life into the top 50, if I'm honest. And I think part of the reason it is in there is because I recently painted all the figures, so
Yes.
it's very, very common in my mind. Because what I love about Starcadia Quest is the humour of it, the parody, the way it embraces loads of other science fiction franchises. I think it's such a shame that of all the Simon games, this seems to have just been forgotten. And I'm frustrated that I can't get all of the expansions for it because they were exclusive to Kickstarter. We've talked about that in the past. Because I think it's a game that benefits from having more content because of the randomised elements in it.
Yeah.
It's a slightly flawed game in some respects because the rules, without some house rules, you can just end up in this kind of state of limbo where no one can really finish the game and it kind of just run out of time. And even in fact the time limit is a mechanism that we introduced to stop rounds lasting potentially hours and hours and hours of no one winning it. But at its core, it's very simple, very fun, very quick kind of dungeon crawling style games. Great miniatures. Well, they always do fantastic chibi style miniatures. And I think, yes, if we don't play it next year, it won't be in a future list. But for the time being, my 50 is Starcadia Quest.
Yeah, it hasn't quite made my list because I think there are other games of its style that I prefer more. But I did enjoy playing, so perhaps if we did get it to the table again and do another little campaigny bit, then maybe it would peak back up.
If we had a friend who hasn't played as many games, was keen to play a campaign and experience what those sort of things are, that'd be a good one to try.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. My 49 is a game which was introduced to us by one of our friends, and it is quite beige. So,
Okay.
And it's an older game, but I love boats. Boats and games.
I know what it is now.
And it's Francis Drake. And what I like about this game is that you've got sort of almost two different sections. So the beginning part of it, you're sort of loading up your ship, working out, actually sometimes you're working out what ship you're even going to have, and you're getting your barrels of rum together for your crewmates, you're getting your crew, you're doing all of them, and that's like a ratchet, one-way ratchet system that you see in some other games where you can't go backwards, but you've kind of got to leap over people and
I think
things like
Kaido
that.
is the best known one of those.
Yeah.
You can always go forward, never go back.
Yeah, so you've basically got to load up your ship with all the things that you're going to need to go out on your sort of expedition. And then there are varying different ways to get points when you go out and venture the seas. You might go and start sort of trying to get tobacco or different resources that are around, or otherwise you might go and battle some of the ships that are hanging about in the oceans. And then there are varying types of forts or different defensives of which you might go and attack, which thematically maybe not the best, and perhaps much like Puerto Rico could do with a bit of an update, a reskin, and be less colonial. But in terms of the gameplay, I find it interesting because it's sort of secret powers, and people are sort of pledging how much they're putting towards certain areas secretly, so you don't find out who's going to sort of be the best in a certain area to be able to potentially try to achieve something until later.
I like the kind of first come first serve basis, and working out the secret bidding where you're placing
you could put your 3 disc down and someone will assume that you were all in for that, putting your top one, but you were just trying to flummox them so they wouldn't put as much into that.
I do like the duality of the game. It does feel very much like done that bit, then you're going adventuring. It's surprising less people talk about it, but I think it is because it is an older game and it hasn't had that. I can imagine a newer version coming with more elaborate miniatures and softening some of the more awkward cultural elements of it.
Yeah, I mean, if Awakened Realms did a Castles of Burgundy on it,
Yeah.
I'd be well up for that.
And I'd be tempted to use some of the miniatures from Everrain, for example, on it, just to make it feel a bit more grand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like it, and yeah, I play it again with the right player count. Doesn't work at 2. So.
No, it doesn't. No, you do need more, which is why we perhaps haven't played it as much as I would have liked this year. But yeah, I mean, I just like ship sailing about and doing stuff. So just because I love a boat.
Well, my 49, similar to your boss monster, I suppose, I think is in my list because of the the sentimentality of it, and that's Santa Monica. So obviously last year in the summer we went to Santa Monica, and I got it because we were going to Santa Monica. But regardless of that, it's a fun kind of puzzly game for 2. There's enough going on that it stretches the grey matter a bit, but not so much that it feels like a very taxing, puzzly, complicated game. It's very quick and very accessible.
Yes.
Lovely art of it, and it does seem, it feels like a bit like a love letter to that beach region, and when we went there, it's a case of that's familiar because he'd seen that in the game. But yeah, it's a very accessible, very fun, quick game. Looks great on the table.
Yeah.
And not the main event. Certainly a filler game of an evening, or when you just have half an hour and you want to play a quick game. But yeah,
it is a lovely game. It hasn't quite made my list, but wouldn't have been far off. But we have been enjoying.
Yeah, and varied enough with the different objectives to feel different each time. It's not a case of you feel like you're playing the same game every time. But
slightly frustrating sometimes if you don't get the cards which allow you to move your people.
Yes.
That would be my one drawback, which is potentially why it hasn't quite made it in, because I have had a couple of games where if only I could get the ability to do something I needed to do, then I could sort of get everything sorted.
There's a heavy emphasis on some of the random chance, which isn't ideal, but still a fun game.
It is a lovely game. It is.
So my 48. So this was originally 2 years ago when I ranked my top 20. This was number 5.
Oh,
it's now dropped to 48, but last year went to 13. So it's been a sliding scale, and it is trekking the world. And I think I liked it so much initially when I played it because it was a theme I really loved. Art is amazing in this game, looks beautiful, and it's familiar because it has elements of kind of pandemic systems in there where you're kind of doing set collection to complete goals. Obviously the world mapper, it reminded me perhaps of Pandemic, and it is an accessible, fun game with a lot of bite, a lot of things that you can tailor to your goals.
I can block your path.
And it's
like that.
incredibly competitive, which people don't realise when they initially explain it. You can just be really mean because you can't pass through someone. So then have to go on deviated routes, and also the journey cards can be really, really mean. We can just swap places with someone who's about to do a mission. But yeah, I think because it looks so nice, has such great table presence, I do enjoy playing it a lot.
Me too.
And works really well on BGA, so we tend to have that game often going on in the background.
Yeah, it's a great one, I think, to introduce to people sort of early in the hobby, because it's not complicated. It is, the world map, everyone's sort of familiar with that. It doesn't feel too alien or intimidating as sometimes some of the other themes can do. And it's not difficult mechanisms to sort of pick up or learn.
No, and similarly, trekking through history, we played last year. I enjoyed that as well.
I did,
but I do prefer trekking the world. So that's my 48.
My 48 is a big game, a long game. It's Firefly, and again, it's one that has some sentimental value. I remember some great gaming days with some of my closest friends where we would literally have a Firefly day. And if one of the groups had a new baby, we're passing the baby around between turns and things like that. But at its core, it feels like the TV show. I think it does quite well in terms of the sort of IP in a game, which sometimes can be a little tricky. and it feels like you are sort of roaming about in that world, and you're going off. It's very much pick up and deliver,
Yes.
and sort of achieve missions and things like that. I think some people say that it is a bit slow for them. I think that from the plays that you've had, you thought that it was a bit too
I find
slow.
the Reavers really do inhibit how far you can go, how quickly you can go, to the point where it does feel like a trudge when you've got a mission you can complete, and there is, an element of random opportunity and luck that happens. I mean, I won a game solely because I needed to get somewhere that was literally the next spot over.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have won it if it was on the other side of the map. So but that's inherent in any kind of pick up and deliver game. There is that chance you're just going to get a lot of easy missions. But thematically, I think it's great. I love the TV show, so that helps.
Yeah. No, and I think to play this game, you kind of need to know and love the show in order to appreciate the game. I think there are probably some better pick up and delivers if you're not in it for the theme, but the theme I think really enhances this, and I love you've got all the locations on the cards to pick up different bits and pieces. You can add crew to your boats and ships even.
Well, a boat in keeping with in the film or the TV series, but
so it's just one that I've really had a lot of fun with over the years and enjoy, and my friend has everything for it, all of the expansions, etc. And so whenever we play it, it is a huge sprawling with everything out, and it's a lot of fun. My 47 is Zia Legends of a Drift System. Now I haven't played this very much, but when I did play it, I just had a lot of fun. So I think sometimes games, when you start playing them, you kind of think, oh wow, yeah, this one's going to be a good one. And other times you have a first play of something else and you're kind of like, oh yeah, I need to play that a few more times to see what I really think about it. And so there are a few games on this list that I haven't played many times and they've still made the list, but I think that is because of the impact they have made. And I just quite enjoyed this whole sort of exploring the galaxy in this one. There was a lot of kind of feeling of anticipation of luck or chance, like am I about to turn over a new tile and it be some sort of solar explosion and I'm going to burn off. There's little wormholes and things that you can get sort of trapped in, and you've got to kind of negate your way out and around them. There are ships that are being controlled by others that are sort of out to get everyone, basically. And I think depending on what gets revealed depends on what ships come out, which is great. And there are missions which you're desperately hoping certain planet systems are going to come out so you can go and deliver whatever it is that you need to go and do there. And you're kind of thinking, come on, be the next one that comes out. And sort of trying to second guess where a new one might come out in case you need to be not that far from there. Where's your sort of safety net? And you towards the end of our game, you pummeled my ship.
I played just as a rogue, where the rules didn't really apply to me. You got the shield defenses around the planet. I just went straight through them. Why not? It meant that everyone wanted to kill me, and I was a the crime lord of the galaxy. But what's really good about that game is obviously it has the painted miniatures. It does feel like a busy, populated galaxy. Yeah. Which some games often don't, and because there's non-player ships moving around and doing their own thing, and with a bigger player count particularly, it does feel like, whoa, this is a busy place. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot going on the board for sure.
Which is good, because often it just feels like you're the only people in this void of nothingness, and it did feel like you're part of something bigger when you're playing it.
There's always something that you could have gone to do, even if it wasn't the optimal strategy that you were looking to try to do, because for example your planet that you need hasn't come out yet or something. There was still a lot of options for you to be able to choose to do as well, alongside still kind of working on that main goal until you can get that one done. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Would like to play again. But
Yeah, let's get to the table sometime soon. Well, my 47 is a Kickstarter we got last year.
Oh.
That I fell in love with because of the theme, Wild Serengeti. And at its core, it is a puzzle game. It's a puzzle game with a fantastic theme, but it's still a puzzle game where you're essentially trying to line things up to get your own objectives, hoping other people don't muck up what you've tried to orchestrate to get their own objectives.
And when you say line things up, you mean line beautiful meeples up that look gorgeous animals.
Yeah, it's a really lovely game in terms of table presence. And yes, it's well known for its animal meeples because it looks lovely.
Yeah.
And there's lots of advanced rules you can play that take it away from just being a very almost entry level game that you can play with families, but there are advanced rules that just expand it and make it a bit more complicated. And for us, I enjoy it more as a 2-player game. I've seen people criticise that it takes too long to play. We've never really found that.
No.
Because we know it and you can get through it quite quickly. But for bigger player counts, it doesn't feel like you're really in control of your destiny. When you spent a long time trying to get 3 lions in a row that happen to have 1 in a swamp, and then suddenly someone just moves everything you've done, it's like, well, that's incredibly frustrating, and it doesn't feel like you're controlling how you're going to win. What is good though is the great migrations you have. So,
I love the migrations.
So halfway through the game,
just change everything.
You're picking a card, and then it could really affect one player, might affect you both, and then you're almost starting from scratch again. But as you get more familiar with it, you kind of build in a defense mechanism against that, and that's going to come. So it's like, well, I'll hold back on using my graphic effects tokens to manipulate which area they're in, or you can use the meat to lure them.
Or you're desperately trying to kind of complete something before the migration's about to come, so you can time things in line for that.
But it's a great game. Looks great, but beyond that, I think strip off the amazing meeples and the beautiful art, you would still have a fun puzzle game.
Yeah.
So I think it's deserving for that. So number 46 is a game that isn't even available to buy yet. It's a game we're involved with in the Kickstarter called Steel Colosseum. Now, in a description, you'd think I wouldn't like this game because I'm not very good at 2-player chess games at all.
Yeah.
But this worked really well with me, and I think a lot of it's to do with the art, which has this kind of grungy 90s aesthetic, which reminds me of old video games from a video game developer called Bitmap Brothers, and I love those games. And the theme itself is clearly based on Robot Wars, which is a TV show I loved as a child. So I think that does factor into how much I enjoyed our time with this game. But at its core, it's 2 robots you're controlling, duking it out in a arena with other robots. So it does expand up to 4, but we predominantly played it at 2. I love all the customization of it, and the figuring out, do I get more junk so I can buy stuff, or do I just play defensively? Do I have a synergy of 2 robots that work well together that make you a more unstoppable force? We played obviously the Kickstarter version in its production phase, so I think there was a few balancing issues that I know they're addressing for the final production, which will come out midway through next year.
Okay.
And there's so many great mechanics in it that I really enjoy. It's quick to play, looks great on the table, the miniatures are brilliant, and it was attention grabbing. So when we played it with a group of people are kind of looking around, enjoying it almost as a spectator sport. So and we saw that a lot actually at the UK Games Expo as well, where there would always be a crowd of people around when they're demoing it there. We are very fortunate to be sent Kickstarter games to talk about on this channel, and often it's with a heavy heart that we're sending them back, because it's like, well, now we can't play that until it's finished, and you do miss it, because then at that point you're really ingrained in the game. But you'd think I wouldn't like it, because there are some 2-player games I can't stand.
There are a lot of elements of that game which would certainly tick your not for me box. And so I was a little bit surprised, and I don't mind that sort of chess-like manoeuvring kind of games. That's probably why you don't like them, because I'm okay at them.
I always play more impulsively than you do. So you're plan ahead, whereas I'm more like, see what happens straight away, and that often leads to my ruin. But that's just the way I play.
I just move into a place, and I know that will force you to move somewhere, which will then allow me to pounce.
Yes, but what's good is if you're not doing that immediate attacking, you can start pooling things, knowing that you can stretch the game out and then upgrade heavily during the intermission to then become a full powerful force for the finale. And
it's one that won you over.
Yeah, it did
more than I thought it would. Yeah, and I enjoyed it, but you certainly liked it more than I did.
So I'm keen to see the final version. Whether that means it will go high in my future top 50s, or will end up not being the game I want it to be. But right now, really keen to play it again.
Still on your mind. You still mention it quite a lot. So yeah. Mine is Century, and we have the Golem edition, which I much prefer to the sort of standard Spice Road, just because I like the artwork more. I think they are the same game, and it has the gems rather than the cubes, which aesthetically I just enjoy more. I think this is a wonderful game. It's a wonderful entry level. Anyone can play it, or we can play it relatively quickly between the two of us, if it's just sort of over a cup of coffee on the coffee table kind of situation, or we've also had it in groups at sort of not quite parties but gatherings where we've just sort of wanted to play something easy, and we've played that with people that aren't really gamers, as well as those that are. And I just think it's such a great all-rounder, such great sort of base mechanic, but does give you some options. Are we all going for that 20-point card, are we? I see we're all trying to get this colour of gem, the pink ones or whatever.
You can start making your opponents again. Okay, so you're hoarding green. I wonder why you're doing that.
Yeah. And it really does change up each play with what cards come out and what you're going to bring to your sort of ability to gather and get sort of your program or your deck build going. It really changes up what you can do and how quickly and what kind of combos you can sort of gather through changes depending on what your deck ends up being.
Yeah.
So it does feel like you're not having the same experience exactly every time, because the goals are different and what you're able to do is different. So
but you can explain it quickly to people. It's not excessively complicated, but has got that depth. What I'm keen to do is something we've never done. Because it's a trilogy, I'm keen to play other games and see how they work with this. And find that sweet spot.
Do combine them, don't they? And that is something that we've been wanting to do for ages but haven't quite got around to. So that's a goal for 2023. So my number 45 is Champions of Midgard.
Okay.
But I do have to add a bit of a caveat to that, in that it wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't for the Valhalla expansion.
Yes.
Now, having got the Valhalla expansion, we will not play without it.
The one thing you detest in games, not detest, but that means you enjoy a game less, is random chance.
Yeah.
You don't like, I've rolled a dice, now I lose.
Yeah, I am not great on the big dice chuckers that don't allow you to manipulate and do things with them. And in the base game of this, you are sort of throwing away your warriors constantly. But when you add in the Valhalla expansion, those dead warriors obviously go to Valhalla, and then you can make use of them, and that just makes me much happier. Because you're then trying to get another goal past what you were already doing in the base game, which is, you might be fighting a troll, you might be going out in a ship trying to do something, initially you're placing your people in sort of resource gathering in order to have what you need. That might be gathering the warriors, i.e. the dice, or you might need food to feed them if you're going to take them out on a ship, or you might want to go and buy yourself your own ship, things like that. So I've always liked those sort of worker placement styles, but I do like it when it then involves doing something else as well. And I feel like in this game, you feel like you're then going out to kill the droggers or the trolls and
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
And then again, as we've said with Valhalla, you're then trying to use your dead warriors to help in what Valhalla achieve the different cards with the sort of objectives that you have there. And it just adds a lot more to the game, in my opinion, and it makes it turn from one that I enjoyed previously but I've moved past, maybe, to a game that I still now want to table, having played a lot of other games by adding that one in.
It's not on my list, and I think because of the theme.
Oh, because I love Vikings, and that's why it probably is on the list for me.
I love all the mechanics of it, but it has similarities to other games that we do play, and I prefer the theme for.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy playing it when you get to it, and as you said, much better with Valhalla. Almost a point of, I wouldn't get one without the other. Even for new players, it's not a case of it adds complexity. It just removes the elements from the game that, particularly you don't like, and I think it just improves it.
I haven't played the Dark Mountain expansion as yet, but I would be interested in seeing what that adds to the game and whether that makes me like it even more. But it's one of those, again, that we haven't played it for a little while, and now we're talking about it. I'm sort of itching to get it to the table.
I think it's the next step on. If you played like Lords of Waterdeep, it's the next step on from that. I think we've got much more complicated styles of games.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason, it kind of falls in by the wayside a little bit. I wouldn't introduce it to a new player. When we got Waterdeep, we could introduce them if they've never played these style of games. But I do enjoy it. So.
Yeah. No, I love a Viking game.
So my 45 is a game. I think it's one of our newest games on the shelf. It's Flamecraft.
Yeah.
Now this is obviously another Kickstarter that arrived today, and I suppose unlike Wild Serengeti, I think if you did strip off the amazing art and the dragon miniatures, don't get the Meeple version, get the miniatures, and just the loveliness of it, would it still be as appealing? Who can tell, because you can't remove them. But I do love the core gameplay of it as well. I've said in other videos, it's a good-hearted game.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it great for families. Yes, of course, you end up with a winner. Yes, of course you do. Because it's a game. And it's not a cooperative game. But going to the shop doesn't mean the shop then is rubbish for everyone else. It actually means it's better for everyone else. And if you're still there, you get a little resource from them. So that's good too. It does feel like whatever you do, you're helping yourself and also making just the world better, which is a lovely concept for this kind of game. It's not particularly challenging to teach or play, but every time we played it, it just has been lovely. It's a lovely game. I might as well stick it on the box. Flamecraft. It's a lovely game. And yeah, it's there's no tension or anger, but that doesn't remove the fact that you are playing a game and you are planning ahead and working out what's the best thing to do. But every time it's been played, people have had a lovely time. Yeah,
it's very puzzly in terms of what you're wanting to get, how to best. There might be a shop there that's going to get you loads of stuff, but is it actually to your benefit to get those specific items or not? But yeah, no, I really enjoyed that one.
Pleasantly surprised, to be honest. We got it because we thought this is a great game for families, but we've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So my 44 is a game that we've played a lot. I really love it. I don't think you do.
Oh.
I think you play it to amuse me or because it's an ideal situation for it, but I don't think you'd ever really choose to play it.
Okay, what is it?
It's Sprawlopolis.
Okay.
I love Sprawlopolis. I think it's one of the best button shy games, not the best. There might be another one in here later on.
I'll agree with that.
I love those style of card games. I do love the button shy 18 card games. And I think with all the expansions in, this becomes even more fun. But I do find it better one player. I do find it more of a fun solo experience because, yes, you're meant to talk and engage with your fellow town planners when you're playing it, but there is still an element of, please don't put that there. And you're looking at your cards going, I really need to put that there because in 2 turns that's going to do great stuff. But then your opponent's going, yeah, but now you've put that there. 2 of my cards are useless. brilliant. It's so hard though. That's
Yeah, we don't often win at that, but maybe we should just play it solo. And then, and then we'd find it more satisfying.
well, it's, if you're breaking even by the time you subtract the roads, that's always a good place to be. And then maybe the missions will be enough.
Focusing on closing off the roads, so you've got as minimal road numbers as possible.
And I just want to stick things out and complete sectors. And it's like, I've got 2 more roads there. We've lost 2 points, but I've got another point for having commercial in the right area. But I think of all the games we play kind of 2-player, this is the most tense we ever get with each other. And apart from those kind of traitor mechanic style games, we just, for a cooperative game, it just gets really tense. And
it's like, you must have the card that's needed for this section. Why have you
done that?
Why haven't you got it?
Why have you done that for 1 point? Anyway, so I think this is a game I can only play solo going forward. It has dropped a bit. It was 17 on my list. Now it's 44.
Ooh.
But I still enjoy playing it. So that's my 44.
Interesting. My 44 is also a game that you're not that keen on.
Okay.
Tzolkin, the Mayan calendar. I really love putting those people on the cogs and trying to work out at what point am I bringing them back, how long can I leave them on the cog to get the best thing possible, and sort of getting my skulls and getting my points and things, and you're just not gelled with that one at all.
I can't really work out why I don't dislike it. I just never would choose to play it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about it, because I love worker placement games. There's just something a bit irritating about the cog. I don't know. I can't.
Is it the cogs?
Yeah, because things move around, and if you're playing with bigger player counts, it's like, you've now knocked my guy off before I had a chance to do anything good with him. And
you shouldn't have left him on that long, should you?
I don't know. Maybe I haven't played it properly, but there's something never really gels me.
You have only played it a couple of times, whereas I have played it a little bit more. And it's one that I'd love to add to the collection, but I just don't think that we'd ever table it because you're not that keen.
We'd have to paint the cogs, because otherwise it's very beige.
A lot of people do paint the cogs and make it look absolutely
Then I might play it.
beautiful. Okay. So
if you're buying it, paint the cogs, and let's table it more.
But I just really love that mechanism and find it interesting how they all sort of turn within each other.
It's a clever game.
It really
and
is.
It is a nice twist on a worker placement game, and I love worker placement games.
Maybe you need to play it again.
Play it more. Yeah.
You need to play it again.
Well, you can take your Tzolkin as a game you like more than me, and I'll present to you Chronicles of Crime, which I think is the archetypal, example of a me game compared to a you game.
Yeah, sure.
Full on narrative, not a great deal of gameplay in these style of games, but if you think about the ways we've entered into this hobby, I've come from playing very heavy narrative video games, where people make jokes about them being walking simulators, but you just participate in an evolving narrative rather than steer it. I really love these kind of games, where you are steering the narrative in a certain ways by where you go, but ultimately the way the story is going to unfold is out of your control. The story is the story, and if you do well in the story, you're a good detective. But I just love them. I love these kind of things.
It's funny because when we play those kinds of games, that kind of detective style thing, I get into kind of trying to work out whose ulterior motive is this and that, and I do enjoy the gameplay, but I don't know if it's the theme. I'd never gravitate to watching Columbo on the telly or anything.
So I do enjoy watching those kind of things.
So that kind of slightly dated detective styling, the artwork in it it's great. It fits in the theme really well, but it's just not something I gravitate towards in the same way that I gravitate towards Vikings and you don't. So that will always sort of set a game up a couple of notches, just because I'm more into the theming and things of it. And I think that does, definitely affect my likelihood to play. But when I do play, I do kind of enjoy them.
Yeah, well, I'd like to just motor through all the cases now, and trying to persuade you to play when on a set aside 3 hours to play this detective game. I'd be interested to see when I get other ones whether they're more in keeping. The art draws you in more, or the role. Because if you don't invest in the world, and what is going on in that universe, then you're not going to be particularly engaged. So hopefully, future iterations will grab you more.
Yes, yeah. So my 43 is Draftasaurus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a game that I've played a lot of online. And it's very much a coffee time game, or an end of night filler, or great for an entry level gaming as well. I mean, it's got dinosaur meeples.
Great dinosaur meeples.
What's not to love? And you're just placing them out in different areas. There are restrictions in terms of your placement, dependent on who's going to be the dice roller, and you're passing the coloured dinosaurs around and have a pool to choose from, and you're trying to maybe match them up, or have alternate ones in different sort of paddock areas, or perhaps you're trying to get one of every type in another one, and so it's just one of those sort of puzzly placement games. And sure, if it wasn't for dinosaurs, I probably wouldn't like it as much as I do. But it is a great little easy to play game. And as I say, you sit there, you've got 20 minutes and a cup of coffee, and you just want to bring something little out to the table.
Good for travel too.
It's fab, yeah.
Just taking a bag of minis with you, and miniatures. Minis, the dinosaur minis, aren't they? Meeples, with you, and then you're good to go, really. But I think you said I agree with it. It's not on my list, but it's good.
But yeah, I really enjoy it, and great to play online on BGA. If you haven't tried it, then give it a go on there. Again, it's one that works in real time, or it works quite well in everyone taking their turn as and when. I found some games are a bit more complicated. It's awkward when you're doing that turn-based kind of thing. You don't really know what's going on in the game. You have to sort of work out where you are before you can take your turn. But this one's, easy, simple, just relaxing, really. Yeah. So my 42 is a Japanese game. We love the Japanese theme in games, and it's Iki. And this is another, you're sort of going across these different shops and shopping, and you're hoping to avoid a fire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop buying tobacco and pipes, because the world of Iki is incredibly flammable.
And there's some games when we've barely been touched by the fires, and there's other games when the whole town's gone down.
Yeah.
The whole town. Yeah. And you're trying to sort of match up fish. You're trying to get great points from getting the tobacco. It's very old style. And if you can get your people around, you can sort of retire them out and then get new people doing new and better and bigger things.
Yeah.
And it's just a really fun game. I really like the theme of it. It looks beautiful. And again, it's quite puzzly, but relatively relaxing for what I would say was sort of it's a step up from Draftasaurus for sure.
Yeah.
It's like that sort of mid-range kind of one. It's
a great game that works with 2 players and with bigger player counts, so you can flip the board and things. But I'm not going to say too much about it because it's on my list, and we'll talk about it sometime, actually in a future video. Which is interesting because last year it was higher on your list than it was on mine, but this year it switched around. In fact, next on my list is a game that's always on my list. In fact, once upon a time it's number 10.
Oh.
And then last year it was number 19. Now it's 42. But I think it's always going to be on the list, even if I have to manipulate whatever's number 50 just to keep it on the list, because I'm not having a list about a Back to the Future game.
Of course you're not.
So
you're not.
The best Back to the Future game is Back to the Future Back in Time, without a doubt.
I do agree with that. If you're talking the best one and that's the theme that you like, that is the best. In my opinion, there are 2 games that if you like that theme are worth having. I know that you have many more than that.
I have every Back to the Future game.
But there are two of them for a sort of person who's not enthusiastic about Back to the Future.
Have a normal level of enthusiasm. For Back to the Future.
Yeah, just appreciate it normally, rather than over enthusiastically.
Yeah, it's fine. We can say that.
Yeah, this is the best one, and there's one other game that's worth playing.
Yeah, this is a really good. I would say if you strip off the theme, there's a good game here. It's a taxing, puzzling, really hard game actually, where you're just having to do a series of different things by the end of the game, and it's entirely cooperative.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way of playing it is having one person focusing on some of the objectives, while another person's doing other things. But it's kind of pandemic-y. You're controlling, managing fires, trying to work out, not literally, that'd be weird, just trying to make sure all the ducks in a line by the end of the game. And we don't always win, considering how many games we play. It shows it's a tricky one. The right level of tricky, but yeah, don't be lulled into thinking this is a family, easy, one page of rules game. There's a lot goes on in this game. Looks brilliant on the table. I love the fact that the clock tower's a dice tower.
That's great.
So yeah, what's not to love?
I think they've worked the theme out into the game quite well.
There's some Back to the Future games, I'm not going to say they're all good, that just don't work, where they focus on the time travel part of it. This doesn't. This is just recreating the first film, and I think it works better as a result. But yeah, it's always going to be on the list at some point.
Next year we'll do up to 100.
Yeah, it'd be easier then.
Right, my 41 and the last of this first section of these top 50s is Azul, and I prefer the Summer Pavilion version to the other ones that we've played so far.
Don't leave me hanging, because that's my 41 too.
Ooh!
That's a match.
Gosh! Wow.
I know.
Who knew that would be on the same number?
We both like Azul, Summer Pavilion, an equal amount.
An equal amount of 41ness.
All about the 41.
Yes. I haven't played the Sintra. Stained Glass of Sintra.
That's the only one I haven't played.
But we have played all of the other ones. And Queen's Garden I would like to play a couple more times to get a real good sort of measure on it. But at the moment I prefer Summer Pavilion to the other Azuls. I love those sort of lozenge style tiles. They feel great. They sound great when they clank. Yep. And I love the idea that you're making this such a pretty pattern. I find the board for this one so much prettier than the base game. The
base game's half not board. It's just
pointy
scoring
bits. Yeah. Yeah, and that concept of having to gather that certain number of them before then you place one and put the rest into the sort of bin section.
Yeah, and you have that random element in the middle where it's like, well, I've got to stick this somewhere, but I can't put it in that flower, so I'll stick it in this star in the middle, I suppose it is.
Yeah.
I find Azul a little bit too light. I find Queen's Garden a little bit too complicated for what it is. This is peak Azulness for me. Really enjoy it.
And it's a game that we've taught non-gamers new to the game, and they've all picked it up really well, really easily. So I think it gives us a nice challenge if we're feeling puzzly, but also good for all round play with other people, friends and family and things as well. It's great. My one thing that I'm not so keen on in this game is the look of the tower. I don't think it goes well.
No, it doesn't seem
with
entirely
the rest of the game,
with it.
just visually, but I mean, it doesn't obviously affect the gameplay in any way.
No. And we have the expansion. Well, it's not really expansion; it's an upgrade, really, which keeps things on the tray. It's a plastic tray that goes over the top, keeps things in place, because there's a tendency for those to slide around because you end up with a lot of pieces on your board, and particularly the score tracks are very fiddly as it goes around.
I think the score track is more fiddly with the overlay.
Yeah.
And it depends who we're playing with as to whether we would get those out. I mean, I think if you're playing with younger players, who are certainly, I think,
more clumsy.
They're more likely to sort of push an arm over and half the stuff's gone over and you're not sure which point it was in, then it's definitely worth playing with that. If we're just playing the two of us, we don't often bother.
No. But yeah, it's a good bizarrely more in the summer. It's a kind of summery game.
Yeah, because the colours are so summery.
Yeah, where it's like,
and it says summer in the title.
we've played at barbecues, for example. It's just, get on the table, it looks nice and fun's had. But yeah.
And it's pretty.
A worthy 41.
It is.
But yeah, that's just the tip of the iceberg of our videos. So coming up, we will have the next iterations of this, but obviously don't get too cross with us if we haven't mentioned a game you love, because it could be higher on our list.
Might be, yeah.
But do let us know in the comments if we are overly enthusiastic about a Back to the Future game, for example, and what your takes are on these. Do let us know down below. If you're new to the channel and you found us because you're looking for this popular topic of top board games, think about subscribing if you've enjoyed us rambling.
Yeah, and ring the bell and you'll hear more about when our next videos come up for, 40 to 31 is coming next.
Yeah, so stick around if you're keen to see more. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.